Hey guys, welcome back to Confessions with Cassidy. I, of course, am Cassidy, and I'm super looking forward to this video this week. It is something that I really struggled with for a long time, and that is saying sorry. I think it's something that we've all gone through about having a hard time to apologize for your actions when you might think you're not in the wrong, but sometimes you just need to swallow your ego and say, I'm sorry. Before we dive in, make sure to like and subscribe, hit that bell if you're feeling extra lovely, and let's get into it. Saying sorry should be easier than it is sometimes. You know, if you hurt somebody, even in a very small way, it can just be really hard to take ownership of your words and your actions and actually truly apologize. On the flip side, it's also very easy to apologize for very small things, so then the actual words, I'm sorry, don't really matter when it comes to big things anymore. There's not so much weight in those words, and that can kind of create this weird gray zone of what is a genuine apology and what is just some pretty words to put over a bad experience or some bad actions. For me in my early 20s, I feel like I had a really hard time taking ownership of my words and my actions, and saying sorry just wasn't really in my vocabulary. I think I used it as this shield of this defense mechanism to not take ownership for my own issues. And learning how to say sorry and genuinely meaning it was a really big journey for me. And I know that I'm not alone in the struggle of figuring out how to be empathetic and be open to criticism. And I hope these tips can help anybody else who is struggling with this entire topic. So to start with, my first point would be to be honest with your actions. Something that I started doing was after a big fight or after an experience that wasn't so nice, I would start writing down everything that happened, so that once the frustration and the anger and the defensiveness kind of wore off, I could go back and actually read what had happened. Because the mind has a funny way of making you believe things didn't actually happen, and it's very easy to forget words you said or words other people said, and it's very easy to allow your mind to forgive you before somebody else did. And that is why being honest with your actions is so important. Being able to write them down and come back a couple days later to look at them and read them, you're not able to hide behind your brain. You have to actually confront exactly what happened and be honest with what happened. You can't fill in the blanks with lies and pretend situations that didn't actually truly happen. It can be really terrifying to also go back and read those pages and those words that you write down, but it's so helpful to really ground yourself and say, okay, I kind of fucked up. Especially for me, defensiveness was a really big issue, and I just was pushing everything away from myself. This wasn't my issue. I didn't do this. I'm not responsible for this. I'm not responsible for somebody else's emotions. I agree with that, except if I'm the one causing the harm. So that was for me a really big learning experience, to really confront myself with how I was affecting people. So to be honest with your actions is absolutely crucial when learning how to really genuinely say I'm sorry. That kind of leads into the second point, which is to separate yourself from the situation. After you've written down the experience or the words that were said, I would say really take yourself out of the situation for a couple days. Cool off, calm down, and really take a beat and take a breath to kind of hone in on why this happened, why this conversation got to a point where you have to say I'm sorry, why your actions led to hurt somebody in order to have to say I'm sorry. Because I'm sorry is a really important word. It's like the opposite of I love you. You say I love you when somebody matters so deeply to you that you need to tell them how you feel. And you say I'm sorry when somebody matters so deeply to you that you have to tell them how you feel. And it's just easier said than done, for sure. It's also hard to say I love you. To be vulnerable and to be honest with your emotions and with somebody else's emotions can be absolutely daunting. And it's just a very important lesson to be able to take yourself away from the entire situation so that nothing else is said. I think if you get into a really bad argument, it's very easy to just start spitting bullshit back and forth until you say something that you can't take back. And that can lead to there's no more chances to say I'm sorry. the bridges are burned and you brought the matches, you know? So that's like probably the most important for me, is to really separate yourself from the situation so that you don't say something that you don't mean and that you can't come back from. My third point would be to put yourself in their shoes. This, if you have a defensive personality, can be extremely hard, and to really delve into like an empathy for another individual is so important. And that is by taking the entire situation of what happened after you separated yourself and look at the words that you said to them. And if somebody said those to you, how would you feel? No matter what you're arguing about, you're arguing for a reason, and that's completely okay. But there's a line between arguing and having a conversation or even a heated discussion about something that's bothering you and being malicious and being rude and horrible. And the same goes both ways. At least in my experience, it was never really me just like berating somebody to the point that I had to say I'm sorry, where they were just not saying anything back. Like 9 times out of 10, it is a two-way street. But it's important to get yourself out of that situation and to kind of put yourself in the other person's shoes before it gets to the point where you do have to say I'm sorry. There's not much really to say about it except, how do you want to be treated? Do you want to be yelled at? Do you want to feel horrible about yourself? Do you want to feel less than? Absolutely not. That's not how you should want to feel. And I hope that you don't wish that upon yourself. It's just so crucial, if you are in a conversation with somebody, to be basically having this conversation with yourself. If you are going to be fighting with somebody, how necessary is it? Can it also just be a nice conversation? Does it have to go to 10 immediately? If you are in a situation or any sort of relationship where whenever something goes wrong, it's immediately at a 10, I really want you to question if this relationship is worth it. Because you shouldn't have to constantly be going to a 10 anytime something's going wrong. And it shouldn't always get to a point where words are being like spewed with such fire that you can't move on without an apology. It's just not a healthy relationship, and it's not a healthy experience for either parties. So take a look at how you're interacting with this person or with this situation and put yourself in their shoes to really understand, is this worth it? My fourth point would be to forgive yourself. I think the hardest I'm sorry is to actually say it to yourself and the reflection staring back at you in the mirror. The amount of shit we all put ourselves through is horrible, and the amount of experiences that we've all had that, you know, can make you defensive or make you put a wall up that you don't want to, you know, let somebody in or be vulnerable with somebody, that in turn makes it hard saying I'm sorry. I think the biggest I'm sorry that you need to work on is the I'm sorry that's to yourself. If you're fighting with somebody and you're needing to say I'm sorry because it got to that point, before you say I'm sorry to them, I really recommend apologizing to yourself too, because nobody wants to make somebody feel bad, and you have to find forgiveness in yourself, in your soul, for doing that and causing hurt to somebody else. And if you can't say I'm sorry to yourself, then it will not be an authentic I'm sorry to the other person. Sorry is a 5-letter word, and it can feel absolutely impossible to say, but it is so important, because at the end of the day, everybody deserves forgiveness. And I hope that you can take the beat to actually find the strength to apologize from the deepest part of your soul. I am wishing you all the best. Have an amazing week. And, you know, keep working on yourself. Every day is another day, and you can always try again tomorrow, no matter what is happening in your life. Make sure to like and subscribe. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you next Sunday. Mwah!